Hello, Professor, and anybody else who may watch this. I just wanted to say that when I first enrolled into this class, I knew that I was going to like it, become enlightened, and somewhat transformed. However, I thought that it would happen a little differently. I didn't expect to have such a connection to the sociological aspects of many environmental issues. But I did, and I gave birth to my sociological perspective. And I was able to look at things, or I am able to look at things a little differently now, which is pretty amazing. Um, I would like to present to you three main concepts that have really aided me in that transformation and let you know how. So sit back. One of the first concepts that I want to talk about is a concept called environmental justice or environmental injustice, environmental racism. It's all about the uneven distribution between environmental goods and environmental bads and who those really truly do fall upon. It was first brought to light by Michael Bell in his book, An Invitation to Environmental Sociology. And in it, he says, there's a striking unevenness in the distribution of environmental costs and environmental benefits, in the distribution of what might be termed environmental bads and environmental goods. These have a potential impact on everyone's lives, but the well-to-do and the well-connected are generally in a better position to avoid the worst consequences of environmental problems, and often to avoid the consequences entirely. And I knew I had seen this before, but I never made the connection between problems in society and environmental problems. In the discussion portion of our classroom, my classmate Kathleen had actually mentioned, that it's happening here in Colorado in an area called Commerce City. And I wanted to do some investigating and see if I can make that connection between these two myself. So I did, and I started by going to their website, and they say that they have numerous well sites in and around the city, and to me it seems as though they're very proud of their contribution to the oil industry. But with that comes refineries, and one of their biggest is Suncor. And if you have ever driven to Denver or past Denver, you can't miss it because it's this huge plant with just this endless white cloud over it of air pollution. And it turns out that they settled a lawsuit not too long ago for over $2 million, which in the scheme of things is not a lot of money. Because they've violated state and federal air emission standards for the release of benzene, which is this awful volatile hydrocarbon. And you can't see it, you can't smell it, you have no idea that it's even falling around you. And these air particulates can travel. But the first people that they fall on are in the neighborhoods around them. And unfortunately, the people that live closest to this refinery are one of the lowest incomes in Commerce City. And that's where the environmental injustice is, because this is where they can only afford to live, and the prices are gauged on this fact that they're living next to this refinery. And they're almost stuck in a way. They're almost silent victims to this control. And it's very sad and it's very unfortunate. And nonetheless, those neighborhoods are populated with the minority that live in Commerce City. It's something that is very unfortunate that happens all over the world. It happens in third world countries where we dump waste, and it happens in other areas in the United States with these low-income areas with landfills and power plants, and there's a cost that comes with it, and the people that deal with those consequences, the people that deal with those environmental bads are unfortunately people who live in poverty and who are on the lower income scale of the U.S. economy. And the people who have the environmental goods on their side, basically turn their heads to this, and obviously Suncor did. We have all the technology in the world today to monitor these things, but it just seems like it was carelessly overlooked because they're not the ones being affected. And knowing that these relationships happen in society and around the world has enhanced me, and my perception, and has made me think about what I could do to help, even changing little things in my everyday life to minimize my contribution to waste and other aspects like that. So that's definitely one concept that has transformed me and enlightened me, but saddened me all at the same time. The next idea that I wanted to talk about that has been essential in my understanding of our socio and environmental issues is the concept of planned and perceived obsolescence. And this idea was first introduced to me through The Story of Stuff, Annie Leonard's video about consumption and production and distribution. And for me, it was a huge eye-opener. So Annie Leonard describes planned obsolescence as things which are quote-unquote designed for the dump. Manufacturers make these products which at a moment's notice will become obsolete. And we have no choice but to throw them out because we feel like they're not workable anymore and replace it. And it's just added to this exponential growth of waste that we have all over the world. And then there's the other half of it, which is perceived obsolescence. And that's our idea of how we need to keep up with things that are constantly changing in order to fit into society. We need to keep up with the newest cell phones and the newest fashion. And thus we toss away what we had that we think is old, even though it is reusable. So both of these things have added to this immense amount of waste that we see. And it has become a huge environmental catastrophe. And it also ties into my first concept that I spoke about of environmental justice, because unfortunately a lot of these places that are littered with waste are in third world countries. And we take advantage of the fact that they don't have any regulations, and we can do this there. It's really easy to feel guilty that we take part of these two things, but really our economy was designed this way for us, and we were only brought into it. I mean, we were told to consume and to drive our economy because that's the American way. But I learned not to feel guilty. As my professor said, it's a system that we were born into, and what we can do from here on out is make conscious decisions as consumers and recycle and reuse, and know that really you're just a little pawn in this game that our economy is trying to play. And the best thing to do for yourself and for future generations is to take in everything you purchase, take into consideration what you need it for and how you're going to use it, and just the long-term use of it is really important as well. So learning about these two things has actually done that for me in my life, and I'm not only able to save money, but put things into a much more useful perspective for myself and for my environment. So it's been very important. The last concept that I wanted to talk about is a concept in which has really tied it all together for me, and that's called virtual environmentalism. It was introduced to me once again by Michael Bell in his book, and it's this concept where we can all do little things every day that barely take any energy, if any at all, and no time away from our everyday lives to make better decisions and be more environmentally conscious, but doing it at a subconscious level. He prefaces it by saying that our lives are so hectic, which we are. They are so insanely busy. We work, we come home, we work some more, we have kids, we cook, we clean, we pay bills. And most of the time, there's very little time left to do other things that require work, like making these huge environmentally conscious commitments. But being a virtual environmentalist virtually takes the pressure off you. And it lessens these feelings of forcefulness, and it lessens the guilt and resentment of having to make these super drastic decisions to save our environment. So I think being a virtual environmentalist would help a lot of people. It would change a lot of people's attitudes and their perceptions. And it would take very little work. And it's about riding your bike to work, or walking whenever you can, or making little decisions like bringing reusable bags with you to the store. All of those take no effort and takes very little time, but yet it has such a great impact. Because if we all banded together and did these things, it would have a significant impact. It could possibly lessen the uneven distribution of environmental injustices that I spoke about. And maybe that's a long time from now, but we have to plan for that long time, because with the way that we are consuming and overproducing and wasting, who knows how long we can live like this. So I think that it's a really important concept. It's a great message, and it's one that I feel ties it all together for me, and I've enjoyed looking at things this way more so. In the end, there's a lot more relationships to explore between society and environmental issues, and I cannot wait to delve into them even deeper. I have definitely transformed my life in the way that I think, and I've developed this great sociological perspective and an ecological dialogue that I'm going to take with me everywhere. I just want to say thank you, Professor, for allowing us to become engaged and critically think about a lot of these concepts and theories, because without that freedom, our minds can expand, and that is really important. It was a pleasure, and thank you very much. Have a good one.